Welcome to another episode of Bet on T Craig. We are here with the one and only phenomenal, outstanding, blessed, and highly favored Chase Sloan.
And I am here with the magnificent, the powerful, the king of all kings, Randy and Boogie. Oh my gosh, the energy is live right now.
Let's do it.
It's a Tuesday,
Let's
and
do
we
it.
got stuff to talk about.
We do.
Randy, how was your week?
My week was weeking. Let me tell you something. I've been telling people I just got to keep shooting. And I think the reason why that reference has been so powerful for me is because it adds clarity to what we are striving to build.
Mhm.
And this is a business. And yes, you're going to feel the stresses of life, but it does not mean you just stop working.
Yeah. You know,
I promise you.
I feel
And
like
you?
somebody can relate to us when we talk about just keep shooting because I feel like okay, so let's just back it up. Randy, in the past week we've had a couple conversations. One of the most powerful conversations I feel like that has stood out is the one we had with Joe Warschild. He's our mentor and he also is owner of the brokerage that we're with. And he just came and just
You want to dissect that? I'll tell you one of the major references that really he was like, he's like, I don't pay attention to gross. What's the net? The mindset to say, what's the gross? I don't want to hear it. What's the net?
Mhm.
And then he talked about, well, this is why you have to build up your business so that then your assets can take over whatever profit you was making in your business. I was
it
like, he was
it
dropping game. It
it
was game.
and we talk about that a lot. We talk
Mhm.
about gamifying and we talk about net and we talk about like how he has built his business. So number one, I think it is very important that whoever you surround yourself with, whatever circle or group, they have to have some kind of evidence of success in their life if you want to achieve that thing. So I'm all for group conversations
Mhm.
and let's just talk about theories and all this different type of stuff. Yet they say your level of thinking has earned you the problems that you have now. So, in order for you to change your circumstance, you have to change your level of thinking.
I felt that though. Even when I talk to other entrepreneurs, I tell them we get paid to think now. And
Y-
while I'm saying that, it's like we're all still in the same boat, but it's still like you still get paid to think, which is then it's like that's a good problem to have because now you can think your way out of your situation.
And if you're surrounded with people that are in the same boat with you
Mhm.
and you have the same level of thinking of you, then you're just really exchanging thought, but you're not building on thought.
Right.
So the reason I share this is so we're talking Joe and we asked him a couple questions, right? Because he just you know the benefit
We
of
got a millionaire in the room.
relationships,
Mhm.
reciprocal relationships, and is that I trust that you have somebody. I'm not going to squirrel away with my thoughts, but I got a whole bunch of things running. First thought, mentorship.
Mhm.
Who you surround yourself with matter.
Mhm.
Hopefully you have a reciprocal relationship to where you can ask real questions. Not what book did you read? What's a moment in your life that changed? We're not talking about questions like that. Question I asked Joe was how long did it take for you to replace your business income? So Joe has he's cited in the Millionaire Real Estate Agent. He's very successful in the commercial real estate, Houston real estate scene. And I just asked him, I said, how long did it take for you to replace your business income passively? So if we back it up, we define wealth as abundance in all areas. And the way that we measure that is you being able to passively fund your life so that way you can do what you're most passionate about. A lot of times, as entrepreneurs, as human beings, we have a passion that calls us, yet we don't have the income to support it, which is why we get pulled back into the workforce and pulled
Mhm.
back into the jobs. So, if you really want to truly live an abundant life, you have to have something else funding it. Joe said it took him 20 years, 20 years for him to be able to buy and hold and buy and sell and buy and flip and buy and parlay and buy and exchange real estate to a point where he had enough passive income to where he don't really care what the people in his team do. He don't really care what his business does
Mhm.
because it's already funded. The conviction on my end is you're 10 years behind. You're 10
Mhm.
years like that's what I walked away with in that you are 10 years behind because you don't
Man,
have the assets currently funding your life.
it hit it. The reason why it was so clear though, right, and how he was describing it was because he said that, it's not to say that he wouldn't want his team to perform, but it is that while they are performing, I needed to still position myself correctly so that I can live the life that I want to live.
And a lot of times, Randy, you'll talk about what about your personal economy versus the national
Of
economy,
course.
right? So even if we're talking about whether you have a team or a business or anything else, what needs to happen in your life to where it doesn't matter what's happening around you? A lot of times I believe that the people who are most frustrated with the economy are the ones who are the most dependent on it.
Mm. Or, well, and what sources are they listening to? Do they have the wise counsel around them who's saying, I see that the economy may not be going the way I want it to, yet I'm still making money. I think it hits different because now it's a different conversation
Yeah.
when it's saying, man, the economy is terrible, yet I'm still getting job offers.
Yeah.
Oh, the economy is terrible. I'm still closing deals. Like my
Because
Airbnb is still making money. Like it's a different conversation.
exactly, because you have to understand that no matter what the market is, somebody is making money.
Somebody's
Deals are
making
still
money.
happening. I remember I had a colleague, very successful. I surround myself with a lot of like wisdoms, it's just people that have just lived longer years than mine. And he said, what do I care? He said, what do I care about what's happening in the economy?
Hmm.
He said, if there are 1,000 homes that sell in Houston, I only need 10. That was literally his thought process. He said, I don't care. I only need 10. So for him, it didn't matter if we sold 1,000 homes in Houston one month and 2,000 homes in the next month, because he only needed 10. And that
Right.
is what he focused on. And so he was very clear about what his personal numbers were that he needed to hit. So that way his personal economy was taken care of.
And I also think it goes back to like controlling what it is you can control,
Mhm.
because the more that I listen and I study all these millionaires and billionaires, it goes back to like relationships, wise counsel, like who are you connecting with? Who do you listen to? Who do you feed off with? What healthy competition do you have around you?
Mhm.
Like these are constant reminders that like it's okay when you do have the ebbs and flows of business, but now are you going to stay there or are you going to keep on shooting?
And then another thing that I think is that there's wisdom and knowledge, and then there's action, right?
Oh, actions. Big on
So,
action.
right?
Very big on action.
And I'll tell you my train of thought. So, over the past week, there was a pitch opportunity, and I told Randy about it. I said, "Okay, we're gonna start doing pitches,
Right.
because Randy and I are very real people. We're not shooting these podcasts because we're like trying to show receipts of how we made $1 billion. I think honestly, you guys are watching us
The
grow
process. This
and
is the
fail
process.
in the process.
This is the
And
process.
so, we're like, oh, I'm like, okay, there's a pitch competition come up. Let's do it. One of the goals I share with you guys all the time at T. Craig, our company mission is to build strong communities through strategic real estate and business ownership. That's that's the metric. That's the goal. When I look, I remember one time I said, I can talk about how many homes I've sold. I can talk about how much value I sold, but the metric I can't measure is the wealth that I've helped build.
Mm,
Because once somebody closes with T. Craig, their wealth building journey begins.
mhm,
Randy, I shared with you once our net worth tracker, right?
mhm.
All of our clients get it.
Oh wow.
Their wealth journey begins and it compounds in ways that I'll never be able to measure. So I like to believe that when I'm no longer here, aside from being able to drive down 288 and say, I sold over there, I sold over there, I helped build this neighborhood, there are families that their net worth, their legacies will shift because they had an experience with T-Craig.
Right.
I really like that, right? Um, with that said, so we're doing this pitch competition. So I'm talking about it, and there's a study released. You can Google it, and it said that the predicted net worth for Black women is $5, and I have such a big problem with that
Yeah, that's a
Be-
very big problem.
because a lot of times people
That's a
think I'm
very big problem.
fussy,
No, no, no. That's a
Randy.
very big problem though. When we talk about it goes back to when we're sitting here and we're like, oh, the money in the black community stays around for roughly, let's say 6 hours.
Hmm.
Can't even stay for a day.
Yeah,
But it goes back to okay, the net worth and for black women is $5. It's like
like
$5.
what are we doing? And it's like anytime I think you have expertise in one area, you're able to look at stuff from a 50,000-foot view. I tell you that often, Randy. I say, like, I'm just, Jay Z had a lyric. Sometimes we show lyrics. He's like, he was, I don't know what song it was, but he was like, my only time is to cut yours. My only job is to
To
cut
cut
yours
yours
in
in
half.
half. Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So a lot of times when Randy, when we're coaching, I'm looking at stuff like he about to run straight into the trees. Oh no, move, Randy, go, move like a little arcade game. No, go left like a scary movie.
Oh
Don't go
man.
that way, right?
Yeah.
But it's because we have a
No,
relationship that
definitely.
I would be detrimental if I watched you make mistakes,
Hmm.
right? I feel like that in our community is that
We just
there
watch
are
each other.
statistics,
Hmm.
right? When people say, I don't want to grow up to be a statistic, okay, but how does that happen? Right? Because obviously, like we said just a second ago, the level of thinking that you've been surrounding yourself with has earned you the reality that you're currently in. So if you want to change your circumstance, you must change your thinking.
And I want to add to that because remember I told you when I took that trip to Ohio,
Hmm.
and I had two conversations with two different people who did not know each other,
Hmm.
and so then I'm sitting with them having a high level conversation, and then they're saying, "Bro, you're thinking too small."
Yeah.
And so while some people are telling me, "Bro, you're doing great, you're doing outstanding," I go sit down with someone the same age as me says, "Bro, you're thinking too small."
Yeah.
And it really dawned on me that it's like, oh, okay, so but we're sitting here having this conversation so that therefore there is room to grow.
Hmm.
Then I go and sit down with, my mentor. He says, love what you're doing. I love the hustle, love the consistency, but let me show you this. And so it opens your mind to like what I was working hard, but it goes back to like, could I have been working smarter? Then in addition to working harder, it compounds significantly more.
Absolutely. Because it's usually just a key or a gem, but like we said, people grow into the conversations around them. So, number
Mhm.
one, if you're not willing to be stupid, I remember when we were having that conversation with Joe, one thing about me is I'm going to ask a question.
Most definitely.
And I suggest you ask your question before I get to asking my questions because I'm going to look around. And if y'all sit in a room twiddling your thumbs, then I'm going to treat it like a one on one mentoring
Hmm.
question because I don't
100%.
understand. I don't understand people don't ask questions. I don't understand why people don't ask questions, and I don't understand why people ask questions that you can Google, like what book should I read? Just
Just Google it.
Google books about money. Like, don't ask a billionaire what book. I just never understood that.
Because you're still gonna have to put in the work anyway. So while the book was great, there's a significant amount of work that still has to be put in.
There's action, right? So we tie all this in. So we're talking to Joe. He said that it took him 20 years of buying and selling and acquiring properties for him to be able to build up his net worth to where he doesn't have to work. He works for fun. So then I pair that with this statistic that Black women have an average net worth of $5. And I say to myself, we got an entire uh world right now that's talking about generational wealth and legacy, and nobody is buying. And then when you ask that question, it's like, well, not everybody wants to buy a home. Some people just want to live in the wind. I don't know what people say, but it to me, it's very concerning.
It
It
is very concerning.
it's very concerning
Even
that people are not starting where they are. It's getting
exactly.
harder.
No, and I want to say from the perspective of I remember being 18 and I'm just sitting there like my mom had just booked a one-way ticket from Ohio to Texas and she was like, you need to stay over there. Like that's where you need to be. That she really did that. Then in doing that, I'm laying down, one morning and I'm like, I need to become more of a producer. And the thing is, I'm 18 at the time, and I remember at like 16, I'm telling someone else, like, yo, what's your social security number so that I can open up a Robinhood account so I can buy Bitcoin. I was saying these things, but I just did not know how. I was looking for an answer, but I didn't have the solution. So when I look back now to someone who's 16, 17, 18, I'm like, look, how can you focus up? How can you think 5 moves ahead so that you can position yourself correctly?
Yeah.
Because we're not thinking just for the year of 2024. Like, how do we actually start thinking about 2028, 2030?
That because that's what the world is. Some things I talk about. So the other day I was driving a 288, and they're doing just so much construction.
Hmm.
I-10 towards Katy,
Yep.
288
Yep.
south towards Manville. They're just doing a lot of construction in Houston. And, it's honestly, to live. in Houston, like inside the loop, the city, you gotta have a coin. Okay. So let's just, we don't believe in setting unrealistic expectations. If you want to live in Houston inside the loop and feel safe, you're gonna need to have a coin. So, anyways, they're building out west, they're building down south, and I'm driving up 288. I said 288 is a prime example of I wish I did versus I'm glad I did versus I wish I had. Because the real estate is getting more and more expensive because
Definitely.
residential follows commercial. So if you ever want to know what area is growing, look for the Tonka trucks. Old school taught me that once. He once said,
Mm,
if you're driving down the freeway and you see trucks with lumber, it's signs of a good economy because that means that they're building. So the flatbed trucks with
right.
lumber, look for that. The second thing is you look for land being cleared. Clue. Third thing is you look for Tonka trucks, Caterpillars, the yellow trucks, right?
Hmm.
That's how you know it's not magic. Residential follows commercial. If they put a Starbucks up, if they put a Home Depot, a Walmart up, bet it, count it like cash, neighborhoods are going to follow. Because who are those businesses selling to? Right? So that's the first thing. But you look at that and it's like people just sit on the sidelines and like wait for things to get better and it gets more and more expensive.
Right. I think is it, when I think about that, I like to I like to honestly remind myself that I'm not promised tomorrow.
Hmm.
And so the fact that today was a gift, what am I willing to do with it?
Hmm.
What strategic decisions do I need to make? How did my entirety of my day look? Have I gotten better? Have I improved? Have I learned? It's because imagine, like the way I like to simplify it is that you go to sleep and you say that that's it.
That's it. So what do you
So I don't have any. So I want to minimize regrets.
So
That,
one of the things that you say is like you have time or you have money, you're going to spend whichever one you value least.
Mhm.
You can choose knowledge or you can choose action. Which one do you value most?
Action, because then I've had to learn that in order to then accrue wisdom, I would say I have to do something to then be able to teach someone else what I've done or at least
So
show them.
so can I infer that blind action is better than solid wisdom?
I would say so. And the only reason I would say so is because if I had all this knowledge and yet I did nothing with the knowledge and it led me to inaction, like paralysis by analysis,
Mm,
that means I did nothing.
that is a whole world right there. Run back.
If I have all this wisdom, this information, and yet I do not move and I do not make a decision and I do not take action, I'm sitting in paralysis by analysis.
Yeah.
That it all looks great, it all sounds good, yet I did nothing.
Because and I'll admit, like, I have fallen guilty of that. So another thing that one of our colleagues said was that research is an excuse for procrastination, and you just need to make a decision. And we're a lot of these conversations just come from the daily conversations that we have with people. They're ready, they're able, they're motivated, and they're just sitting right? Instead of just, I do agree with what you're saying that action in cases can be better than knowledge because you're going to learn along the way. Even if you fail fantastically and fail horribly, and just you will gain conviction on why you didn't do it. We talked about uh, uh day trading, option trading, right? You lost 500, I lost 15,000. We have lost money
Real money.
passionately excited about things we heard about. But guess what? I have a conviction that can't nobody fast talk me about doing no option trading right now.
Yeah. And then I think it goes back to not like it's so surreal to me. Like when I look at business now or I look at relationships now, that it's clear to me. Like it's clear this is what needs to be done. Like, oh, I need to talk to more people. Oh, I need to actually genuinely nurture and build and develop this relationship.
Yeah.
Because if not, I'm gonna be at the mercy of I gotta turn and burn and turn and burn and turn and burn. And I'd rather say, you know, what like how can I continue to provide so much value at scale, but then also it's going to be reciprocated. It's like
Like at
sowing good
scale
seeds.
and
Yeah.
at depth.
Yes.
Do
Yes.
you believe that people still value relationships?
Maybe not as much. Not as much, right? Because the thing is that if I got money, I gotta show the money. Somebody's probably gonna do whatever it is that I need them to do. So
Mm.
it's like, did I really need the relationship? Nah, because I mean, I got the money. I'm gonna pay for this service. They're going to do it.
So do wealthy people not need relationships?
They probably have them. They might not have as many, but they have them.
They say wealthy people are some of the loneliest people.
But I mean,
And the reason, because I asked this, because
it's very true. I like it though. It forces us to kind of like think about then what is truly important.
what do you value most,
Yeah.
right? Because like, if again, we're just pinning stuff against from each other, time versus money, action versus wisdom, relationships over wealth, like what do you value most? I think these are some real questions, because I was talking to somebody, and they relocated to a different city, not Houston, and we're just chopping it up. And they are like, I've been here for years. They got a successful real estate business. They own, I mean, they're not Rudy Poo. They are solid. And they were like, I don't feel rooted. And I said, what do you mean? Why don't you feel rooted? And they were like, people just aren't the same anymore. And I was like, what does that mean?
I think, when I think about that, it's, some people be like, man, you're so funny. Why don't you just like always be that way? I'm like, that's not, because I was the same funny person and I was the same person that got taken advantage of because I tolerated it.
It's
So when
it's
I'm
real
so when I'm
hard.
not smile so when I'm not smiling, know that it's because I know like there is a double-edged sword. I'm still gonna be myself, but it's almost like it's earned too. Because if I'm not gonna sit here about I was 48 laws of power. I'm not gonna do that. That's not what this is. But what I will say is that I allowed people to take advantage of me.
Yeah.
So said relationships were broken or no longer, you know, invested into because they got something from me. And then I'm like, damn,
Have you ever heard of Zig Ziglar?
yes, he's one of the
And
OGs in
I
motivational speaking.
actually had an opportunity to hear him speak before he passed.
Oh wow.
And one of the
Yeah.
things, and it's not a rare quote, but he said, if you help everyone get what they want, you will get what you want.
Yes.
And I went through a period of my life where I just said bullshit. Because I don't, and we talk about taking advantage of and just
Mhm.
all of these different type of things. I think sometimes I will tell people close to me that a culture without code is costly. And here's what I mean by that. You would like to believe that if you do well, if you do right and you do well, that same energy will be returned. And yet that's not always the case. Like, let's just keep it a buck. It's not always the case. Sometimes you lead in goodwill and good faith and it slaps you in your face. Right. So I
Yeah.
just went through a period where I was like, no, right? Like you're reading the good Go Giver
Mhm.
right now.
Mhm.
It's all about coming from contribution.
It is.
That's not easy.
It's not.
It's
It's
not
not.
it's not easy on a practical level. It's not easy on a philosophical
I
level.
think, and that's why it goes back to what the fifth law is the law of receptivity. Like if you're willing to then you're giving, 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 then be open to receiving. And best believe I am open to receiving
I'm
every
open
and
to receiving.
I'm open to
Open to
receiving
receiving.
every and any blessing that comes my way.
How do you think people are close to receiving?
You know, I think maybe it's either a subconscious thing sometimes, or it's like a not a projection thing. But ironically, today I had someone who I met maybe almost like 4, 5 years ago, who I went to college with, like HEC, and he was like recording me saying, "Hey, oh, I'm meeting Randy and Bugay. Do you have a word for your fans?" And I'm just
Not
like,
for
I'm
your
laughing. I
fans.
swear to you, I swear to you. And I'm like, I'm
Told y'all he
laughing.
was hot
No,
sauce.
no, 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 no. I'm laughing, but I'm like almost like pushing it away. I'm like, like, but the reality is that if he saw something in me that I did not yet see in myself, there is something there that he maybe, received through our conversations or saw the way that I act, or yes, I'm pretty much doing real estate full time. I'm taking 5 classes right now. Like
Hmm.
I'm really doing this. And maybe he's seen that we're around the same age, yet he's not on,
Yeah.
doing the same things or similar things. So I think it's like Like, it's like someone supporting what it is they wish they wanted to do, but maybe won't do. And there's nothing wrong with that,
Yeah,
you
because
know?
people will see themselves like someone once said, like, "You can't recognize anything in anyone that you don't already see in yourself, good, bad, or indifferent," right?
Right.
So if you say, "Oh, man, that person is shady," you probably got some shady in you. If you say, "Man, that person is awesome," you've got awesomeness in you. I remember, sometime last week, I think I told you, back it up. So maybe the reason why we reject receiving is because something within ourselves does not feel worthy of it. So, like you said, I don't have fans, don't say that, right? You're pushing that away. And yet, a lesson is to accept the praise that you receive.
Yes.
Sometimes I think that comes from this idea of
Playing yourself down.
playing
Yeah.
yourself down, or being
Like humbling yourself,
humbling
like
yourself.
humbling yourself when someone else is speaking highly of you.
Yeah, like, and it's like
Yeah.
we look we look arrogantly. We look at it like arrogance if somebody came in and was like, "Heck yeah, I'm hot." You know what I'm saying? Like, you are, I rock. Like, if you walked into rooms with that energy, people be like, "He's so big headed, he's so arrogant." So sometimes maybe it's like we play ourselves down, but does that really serve us in the long run? And
Like, it's ironic. The same person was saying, "Oh, you got fans, you got fans." I had like maybe what 2 classes with him, so that means he saw me twice for over an hour. He would see how the teachers would interact with me, like how the professors would interact with me. He'd also see that I'm failing these tests. Like
yeah,
I'm legitimately not getting high grades on this test. Yet he's still like praising me almost, and it's
I
like,
I think it's because, like, you don't recognize your own growth. So, like, I
mhm,
compare it to,
very
like,
true.
when people
Yeah,
are working out, and people when they're working out, because you see yourself every day and you see what you're going through, like, you don't notice your own changes. But if you come to somebody that you haven't seen in, like, months, or 3, 6 months, and then you just walk in the room, they can be like, "Oh my god, you look fantastic," but you're still, like, beating yourself up because you're looking at yourself every day in the mirror,
right.
and the growth that you have to go. And so I remember I was talking to you sometime, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I just feel like I get on people's nerves." Right? Like, that's just real. I just do. And you were like, "I don't think that thought serves you."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh my gosh, he's right. Let me stop saying that." But in that moment, that's just kind of how I started to see, like, that thought does not serve you because you do not show up to places or say what needs to be said because you believe that you're getting on people's nerves.
Like, it's almost so, like, for example, say someone who's known me but doesn't know me, or that it's been a while since they last talked to me, so they use like old nicknames of what I used to be called,
Hmm.
or they mispronounce my name almost like intentionally, as if you haven't known me for X amount of years. Like, it's just certain things that I'm like, I don't find that funny.
Yeah,
So it's like in checking it, like I don't like, there's just certain things that I'm like,
man.
nah, bro, like I just don't like that.
When you get to that place, so we're in the same spot, right? Like, certain things I just don't like. I don't think it's safe to have gray around you.
Mhm.
Um, I once had a event, and somebody was like, "Oh my gosh, the vibes are great, the energy is great, everybody here is great." And I was like, "I don't keep mixed energy in my life. I
Right.
I think it's weird. I think it's not safe." And so the minute that I feel like whatever, I gotta let that go. Good, bad, or indifferent. Maybe I need to go to therapy. Either way, you're not about to play in my face, right?
Right.
We going and it's because I think when you go through experience where your kindness has been taken for weakness, right? We can only control ourselves. I can't blame anyone outside of me.
Mhm.
I believe that. So in order to correct and move forward, I have to better qualify who I allow to have access to me. And that's something we talk about a lot.
you know the reason why I think that's so important though is because if you don't like, it's fine. Time, at least for me, is finite. I'm not as long as I'm on God's green earth, I'm not promised tomorrow.
Yeah.
So then therefore, if it's not serving me, I'm not about to, like, it's not, we're talking to a person and we're building rapport and we're coming from contribution, we're building value within the relationship. No. I'm just talking about people that, if you call you like you somebody calls you and now the conversation is going for 20, 30 minutes and you're sitting there at some point in time like, what are we talking about?
Yeah,
Like what if I have to I'm sitting there listening to your conversation and I'm like, what are we sitting here discussing right now?
because I think you get indignant, right? Uh, when we talk about repentance, right? It's because you have a strong conviction about something to
Mhm.
change the way that you have been moving, operating in life. So it creates this like indignation almost on whatever is happening around you to where it's like, I what are we doing? And you start looking, and I notice that. And sometimes that's where that separation happens. And you see that with people you grow up with or people you used to hang out with. And it's like, oh, you're not the same anymore. And it's like, because I got things to do and I
Right.
don't have a lot of time.
Or
And
this is what's required of me.
this is what's required of me. And I think sometimes we say stuff like, oh, I want a man of purpose. I want a woman of purpose. Like that looks very clear,
Very clear. Explicitly clear.
explicitly clear. And so
Yes.
then when you're like, oh man, I can't relate to this person, it's because I don't think it's because people are trying to be funny acting or anything like that. But when you recognize, like, number one, how short of time that you have, and if your purpose is bigger than you, right? I think people that flail in the wind just don't have purpose or something bigger than them. That's why single mothers are so driven because it's not about them anymore. It's
Right.
often about their child. I even told you that. I even said once, I said, this might shake tables, but families are more motivated than single people because they have something bigger than them pressing them to make a decision. Whereas people who are living for themselves can pack up their bags and move about the plane.
No, it's ironic that you bring that up too though, because as I reflect, I think back to how, around that 2008, 2009, everyone said the economy this, the economy that, and yet, my mom was working, hustling, and I remember watching us move from an apartment complex to a house.
Yeah.
I remember.
Do you think
I
do you
remember.
think your mom would have done that if you weren't here?
No, I don't think so. I think maybe she would have lived with my grandma or something like that. Truly, because you don't have to, why would you need more space if it's just you?
Why would
You might get a townhouse or a condo, but now we're talking about a house.
right?
It's not it's similar, but it's not the same.
It makes sense now that you say that because, like, you're like, okay, so why would you get more space if it's just you? Maybe you'll get a townhouse or condo.
And usually that's how the purchase
Eh,
cycles sometimes look like, yeah. Or
yeah.
maybe age or,
But then
why,
it's
yeah.
like you think about it and it's like, okay, but why get a townhouse and condo when I can just live here and move about the plane freely, right? Like people, and they'll say it like, well, because this is what I hear. This is what the internet tells me. This is what people tell me. I don't know when I'm gonna be in 5 years. I don't want to feel attached to anything, right? And so they kind of live in this future self of um, where they may be in 5 years. And then in reality, your present self is dying because you won't secure the mask. You won't secure, like we have a client that, did the thing, sold their house. Now they've relocated out the country, right? But it was the first home that they purchased that was able to fund that future self. So even if you do desire to move about the country freely, it may be imperative for you to do the thing now, buy the thing now, so that way,
You can actually open up strategies for yourself, your
yeah,
future
open up
self.
strategies for
That's
yourself.
literally what happened though. Because while it been the purpose to purchase the home may have not been the same reason that you sold. However, you still created a sense of either purpose or new mission or conviction for what you can do with the proceeds of the sale of your home.
Some of I was in a wealth building conversation, some mentors of mine, and they said they're a married couple. They were sitting down and they were like just going over their budget and their finances, and they said between the two of us, we've been working for 20 years, right? And they had like less than $10,000 combined to show for it. And they were like,
Oh man.
something's got to shake. And that's when they really started getting serious about putting money aside to purchase their first investment property. And since then, they have built a multi-million dollar portfolio that cash flows and gives them return. The first step was them coming to
Oh, that's whole.
consciousness about we've been doing this for our entire adult life. One of the things that I teach in the classes is that you cannot save your way to wealth.
Very true.
You,
But I think we're seeing that, and that's why I was talking to a my personal trainer damn near this morning, and I mentioned to him, I was like, "Yo, this year is the year, like for everything, like anything that I said I wanted, it's happening this year." And he's like, "What do you mean?" Type of thing, and I'm like, "Well, I've been locked in, you know what I'm saying, since September," and I was like, "It's only a matter of time." Like I was just like, "It's only a matter of time," but it's also like had to make a decision, like you like because even in what you just said within that wealth building conversation is that they assessed their P&L, that's probably, and then we're like, bro, we don't have enough. We don't
yeah,
have nowhere near enough. We got to start today, right
because
now.
at some point you have to stop working, right? People say, that nobody chooses to work in their 80s. Nobody's saying, man,
60s, even 60s.
when I'm 77 years old, I want to look up and I want to be the manager. Ain't nobody trying to do that, And so it's like you got to have a conversation. And I think that is the hardest part because what do they say? They say we overestimate what can happen in 1 year and underestimate
Estimate what
what
can
can happen
happen in
in five.
5. Mhm.
That's real.
That's very real.
We have conversations with people and it's like, oh, they get the quick lick, right? Everybody gets it. They put them Ponzi bingo things on your Instagram feed and people commenting bingo because somebody said this how you flip it. And people will sign up for that. But if you say invest now for your future 5 year from now self, it's like, I don't know, man. Real estate's a gimmick.
I think it goes back to like, what do you want? Like, who do you want to be? And when I wrote that at a top piece of paper and I started writing, who do I want to be? I had to get very clear, very serious about what
Yeah.
I want and how I want it
It makes you, it
real
qualifies
quick.
your yes, it qualifies your no because you cannot reject your own goals. And I think a lot of times, number one, who we want to be is in our head. It's just kind of this idea, this concept, this illusion of what that looks like. And when you start putting it down on paper, like there are some goals that I have. I have goals throughout the house because God says He will give you signs and wonders. So I
Mm,
write my goals down, put on my house. That's a sign. How
mhm,
wonderful. Like, I don't know.
mhm.
I've never seen a burning bush. So I don't know. I'm gonna write my goal till God burn a bush in front of my house, I guess. I don't know. Please don't do that, God. Don't.
That'd be crazy. It's not just one bush, it's all the bushes.
Please. I
It's not
know.
just one
The
bush, it's
bushes are
all
close
the
to my
bushes.
house. I take it back, God. Don't do it.
That
Either way, though, but I have these goals in my house and they're looking at me, staring my face, right? So I'm like, okay, you said you wanted to do this. So how long are you going to wait to start? How long? You said you want to have another investment property. How long are you going to wait to start? What needs to happen so that this can happen now, not later?
I just, I think like even when I even talk to peers that I went to high school with, when I just text them or just follow up with them and some of them say, "Yeah, I got a duplex. Yeah, I got a house now." And I'm just like, they wasn't playing, or they knew what it is that they wanted, and then it just fell into place. Whether it
Hmm.
was a long term career, and then you have a W, like it just like
Were you mad when they said that?
no, actually, no.
As a real estate professional, were you upset when
I
you followed up with somebody and
I
they were
couldn't
like,
even I couldn't even be mad because was did I actually build enough of a relationship to earn that business?
I love that you said that because I think sometimes as professionals, it's easy for us to get upset with the customer. Like, I did all this stuff, I added value, I taught you, I shared this. And this is something that I really had to just detach from. Um, Qualify your giving and staying in relationship, right? Because at the end of the day, everybody will make a decision, whether they
Mhm.
make it with you
Or to make it with someone
to
else.
be dependent,
N-
to be determined.
Determined. Yeah, I just, and I wasn't. What it did though actually added clarity to what it is that I want to do, because while there may be different strategies or plays that you can do to get, I'm put down 5%, or I put down 3.5%, 10%, 20% to purchase a home. I said, there's a common theme in how I've seen other professionals build wealth.
Mhm.
There's nothing wrong with purchasing the one door and then scaling after that.
Yeah,
But then when I listen to them and they talk about their portfolio, it goes from one door to a few doors to then commercial. Or
absolutely.
if it is residential, it's got to be a couple hundred.
And because even if we go, like I say, back to Joe, like he said, I just bought the ugliest thing that nobody wanted to buy. Like he wasn't necessarily analyzing it. It was what could I afford to buy, and I bought it.
Hmm.
And I think that real estate has become so glamorized and so double dutch, like, oh, I gotta do this. You just gotta close on a house because real estate is a forced saving. So when I said that you can't save your way to wealth, well, one, it's because your income is not going to outpace inflation. So if you got a job right now, what you go and work for a job every year, the pay raise is what, 3%?
Hmm.
Sound about right?
Roughly.
Okay.
Maybe.
Maybe 3%.
Maybe.
Okay. Inflation was how much? 8.
8%.
So you -5.
You're not chasing. Yeah, it's real.
-5 versus if you have an asset that is appreciating along with the economy, it's keeping pace with that. So people that I always say, people that owned before the pandemic, they didn't buy the house because they knew a world disaster was coming. They bought the house because that's what they need to do. They benefited from the what was happening in spite of them. And so I don't know. I think we're really kind of wanting you guys to get the fact that wealth does not just happen. You have to take action in the
And be very intentional.
and be
That's what
very
it is.
intentional in the action, not in the purchase, right? Because I think you say intentional, and then, like you said, people start paralysis analysis, and they're like, "Well, Randy said be intentional, so let me study." No, baby, do the thing.
Get your numbers right. See what it looks like.
What needs to happen, right?
Because the thing is that that's why I think it just goes back to what type of life do you want to live, and then asking maybe, are you willing to do what's necessary to then
Mhm.
get there?
Yeah.
Because I always used to say when I was doing the like overseas knowledge is power like growth seminars, I'd be like, you know, two questions I need to ask myself. What am I like who am I now? Those type of thing. Like what do I want? Essentially, what do I want? And what do I need to then get there?
Yeah.
Like who do I need to become to then get there?
It's the gap in the middle, right?
Hmm.
So if it requires a lot of honesty for yourself, and hopefully you have an accountability partner that will be able to help you with that honesty. And yet, before accountability, before mentorships, you have to get real and get right. You have to say to yourself, like, I've been fumbling the ball. It's not outside of you. Even when I shared that statistic about the net worth of Black women, like, yeah, there are a million things outside of our control, right? There's the economy, there's the history of this country, there's systematic things that happen all around us, things we can't control. And then also, there are decisions that you make when you are in position to make them. So once they say once a mind is stretched, it can't go back. So once you
Mm,
know, you can't unknow.
I like that. And I think this is probably why when I, look at wealth or I look at where am I at in my life, I think back to when I was 16, 17, and I was just reading book after book after book. Like how am I supposed to unsee the information of what I read?
Yeah.
Like it's already ingrained in me. So it's like, well, I need to then do better, or I need to make better decisions. I need to think 5 moves ahead instead of just one move, one move, one move. I don't have no plan.
Okay, so let's break that down then. If it's not the knowledge, so you watch the shows, you read the books,
Hmm.
you have the conversations, you're in the mastermind groups, you're in the real estate Facebook group, you're doing all the things. How do we improve upon our action? Because Randy, you're very much so one of the things I say is like Randy's very just action driven. He doesn't really think. He thinks, right? He doesn't think about he's not emotional, right? He it's not about what he feels. And I've had to learn this from him, is that it's not about how he feels in the moment. I think Randy literally just wakes up with a checklist and he just goes to work.
That's it. That
That's
actually is it. That's it. This is what needs to be done. And I've
but
noticed I
but
make
is that because of how you were born, or how did you become a better man of action?
when man, I was I was 20. That's why I said I was 20 when I moved from Houston, Texas to Alabama for a job
Mhm.
that I got fired from like 4 months later. Like, dude, like imagine it's just you. There's no one coming to save you, literally. I mean, yes, I wasn't even praying that hard. Like I wasn't doing the things I needed to do. But the thing is that I was sitting in Alabama and my uncle I was willing to give me an out. He said, "Hey, if you need to move back, I'll let you like you can move back." I'm like, "No, like it's my fault I got fired." Then I was like, I had also just got our relationship. So I'm sitting there and I'm really just pondering like something needs to change.
Mhm.
And so I need to be more intentional. So that was while a start to being more just action driven that well I needed so I it was simple for me. I was like, I need to get a job offer. I need a new job. I need a salary. I said, okay, how many resumes do I just need to put out? So there wasn't a ceiling of I'll just send out 10 today. I was sending out hundreds of resumes. Like I was like, I need a job. There's nothing. This is what I need right now.
Mhm.
There's no alternative. And I think
Mhm.
every single time I've been put in a position where there was no alternative and I could not turn away from whatever needed to be done, I had to show up.
So it seems like, we talk about pain versus pleasure or not, and people will either move from pain or they will move towards pleasure, and usually it is the pain that will motivate you, and it will be the whatever pain outweighs the least. So for example, in the beginning it might be like, I don't want to apply no jobs, I'm tired of applying to jobs, I don't work for no job. That was painful. Then you lose your job and it's like, I have no money. Right? So then
I had an
so now
out.
the pain is homelessness, right? It could get to that extreme. It
It
didn't
did
get
get
to that
it
extreme.
did get and that's the thing, it did get to that extreme. I was pissed. I was angry. I was upset. I literally the lease because I knew I was like, I don't know how long I'm gonna stay here as a month-to-month lease. I said, all right, cool. I'll be finished. I think it was maybe the end of February. This is literally we're what in February now. So that means it's 3 years ago. This is 3 years ago of
Mhm.
this month. And I was like, man, I have no lease. So, because it's done, the lease is over with. I got to clean and leave. I put all my stuff in my car. That's how I like to move state to state. Like,
Mhm.
if I have to move, it has to off in my car, or else whatever is not going is staying. So, I went from the apartment complex I was in to an on base hotel. Stayed there for like a couple nights. I'm like, damn, this still sucks. But I had said, okay, I'm still looking for a job. Like I'm like, what is going on right now? So then I get the job, and then I like okay, I gotta get a an apartment in the new state that I'm about to go to. So then I get I the job offer is already signed. I get to Georgia, and then I get to the apartment complex. Mind you, I drove to Atlanta, flew to Ohio for a week, came back, got my car out. I'm in Atlanta, all my stuff in my car. I have no real place to stay. I go sleep somewhere for one night in Atlanta. Mad as hell, I was getting charged like $6 a night, stay somewhere ghetto. I get up early in the morning, like what, 5, give or take. I drive from Atlanta, Georgia to Hinesville, Georgia, right next to Fort Stewart, Georgia. It's an army base, army installation. And then I get to the apartment complex, and then they're like, yeah, your room's not gonna be ready for another 2 weeks. I said, okay, no problem.
Mhm.
I go to Red Roof like hotel, something like that, Red Inn, something like that, Six Red. It was something red, something. I was staying over there. I have no place to stay at this time. While yes, I got wait like 2 weeks, but I'm like, I'm uh, I thought my lease has already started. Like, what are we talking about
Yeah.
right now? No problem. I stayed there for like almost like 2 weeks. I'm eating like canned food. I'm eating rotisserie chicken. I'm frozen food every now and then. I was like, this sucks. Then I was all right, cool. I said, "All right, I need somewhere cheaper." I was like, "I'm staying in a Red Roof, and then I need to leave." I go somewhere to a motel. I'm still pissed. I'm still angry. And then I'm like, "But you know what? It's okay. I still got a job, so it's like, whatever. I'm getting paid. not really, because you know how you work a job, you gotta wait until the check clear. Like you gotta be on payroll for X amount of weeks. I was like, this is terrible. Anyways,
It's real.
this is real. This was my life. I leave I leave the motel, and mind you, I said this is my life, but it was my fault. This was no one else's fault but mine.
Why?
Why was it my fault?
Yeah.
It was my fault because I had made essentially I made one of the stakeholders mad because I was literally on my phone. And so he asked me, he's like, "Are you on your phone looking up something for like this, customer or whatever?" And I was like, "This is a rhetorical question because no matter how I answer this, it's not gonna end good." He said, "Don't worry about it."
Mhm.
By that day they called me into HR, I was done.
Yeah.
They said, "You've been terminated off the contract effective immediately." I said, nobody care how old I am. Nobody care about the skin color I was. Nobody care about the clothes on my back. Nobody cared if I had food to eat the next day. Nobody cared. So I had to figure it out. So I finished my week at the motel. Then I go to the actual apartment. And so what I did to save money was I was like, I'll stay in one room. The other person stay in another room. We just share the common area. And they, I literally, I was so angry at the fact that the person who stayed in the apartment before me had left it dirty, and I was pissed.
Yeah.
I was out here yelling in Walmart.
Yeah.
Call my bro in Cali, and I was just going off. I was like, "This doesn't make no sense." He's like,
Yeah.
"Bro, you're literally like, you're talking about some hair in the freezers was broke the camel back." I was like, "That just means emotionally, I was done. I was pissed."
Yeah.
Then I was like, "But it's a series of decisions. That's why I don't. That's why now you ask why am I so like action oriented is because I'm taking on time to think about it, and I'm never going to get these days back, and I never want to be at the mercy of someone else again.
Yeah.
So I rather struggle and have my fate in my own hands, so that then when I never have to work for money again, it's because I know it was earned.
Yeah.
That nobody, you cannot take this away from me.
And I think that's what it becomes. I think you get to a point where you're like, no one is coming to save you. And so you have to make decisions, and they're painful.
Very.
You're like, I'm eating out of a can. My
I'm,
stuff is in a car.
I'm saying.
And I think
I'm
that,
saying.
and I love that you share that, because so often, again, that person that looked at you that was like, man, you're fans, all right? People don't always see that, because not everybody, first of all, if you're pissed, you're not trying to shoot a video about it. You know what I'm saying?
No, in that moment, yeah.
You're not like going through hell like, well, some people do. Some people are like, I just got evicted from my house. Look at me. I
That's
don't understand
crazy.
that. Like, are you upset or no? You know what I'm saying? Like, most people, when they are going through it, get quiet. You'll never know about it
I
until they
documented it,
recover.
and I documented it though. I was taking pictures of me inside the hotel,
You're
reading and writing.
taking pictures, but you were not live streaming.
No,
You're live streaming out the backseat of your car?
nah, I wasn't. I wasn't. I wasn't. You're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
What's up,
No, no,
boys
no,
and girls?
no,
I'm
no,
out
no.
here.
So
It's another day, another dollar in
that's
my
exactly what I was
suitcase.
saying though. I was still making content. I was still working out every single day, whether it was living out my car, or whether it was staying at the
But see,
hotel.
I think even that shows conviction, right? So, like, we're in such a season of lessons. Like,
Oh, me.
you talk about documenting. Maybe one day we'll look at Randy and we'll be like, man, I remember like this. Like, we are learning in a lot of ways. Okay.
Every single day.
Um, and one of the things you said is like, I was still working out, I was still showing up. I think Jay-Z just said it recently on the award show, like, keep showing up
Keep showing up.
until you are appreciated. He was saying other things, people recognizing you, but it goes back to being appreciated, right? And it's like, who are you? I remember one time I was having exercise with you, and I said, who are you when you not your what did I say?
Yeah. Who are you?
Who
What
are you when you're not your success? What
your
the,
accolades or something? It's a matter.
yeah,
Yeah. Who are you when you're not getting praise or getting
like,
accept?
who are you when you're not winning? Basically, I don't know what the word was that I used in a conversation. Yet it's very easy for us to stand up with our chest out and our shoulders back when you're winning all the things, when you're closing all the deals, when business is great and you getting the recognition and people are wanting to speak to you and interview you and highlight you on their news articles and all that different. It's great. Everybody can feel great then. And when all of those accolades are stripped from you and you're eating out of a can and you're living in a shared apartment with a crazy person, you know what I'm saying? Who are
Yeah.
you then? Like, is your confidence tied to your productivity?
I to be honest, I remember these moments very vividly, and I think that you know why it didn't bother me as much? That I maybe didn't have as, many people in my corner, or, there wasn't anybody saying, "I got a job for you." It's because I remember being 17 and I'd spend my spring break just writing down motivational notes and little keys to then give to other people.
Yeah,
So
that's interesting.
I've always been like, I'm going to be the underdog, and that's fine
Yeah.
because then when I earn it, nobody can tell me nothing.
I think that's really kind of the takeaway is that when, they say the most empathetic people in the world are the ones that have gone through it. You know, we were watching a show and the woman opened her home
To someone, yeah, who
to someone she didn't even know.
mhm.
I choose to believe that the only reason why she would do something like that is because maybe at some point in her house, in her life, she was just like you, or she was just like what Randy describes and remembers what that felt like. And so a lot of times struggle does bring conviction. They say without struggle, there's no progress. I think without struggle, there's no conviction because you have to decide on whether or not you're going to be a victim or whether you are going to be able to say, let your test be a testimony to somebody else. That is scripture. Don't know what scripture, but somewhere in the Bible it says the reason why we go through things is so that when another person comes along, we can tell them not only we did it, we went through it, but here's what we did. Right, so that's the good news about all that you went through, right?
No, I'm saying
And everybody has a story like that, like,
I'm not the only one, and
you're not
the
uniquely
story could have been
broken.
worse. The story could have been worse, and I think that's why I'm always reminded that's like, while you may feel or think or believe that you're going through a lot, someone doesn't have food to eat at all. Someone is currently evading bombs right now. Somebody is not got no clothes on their back. Someone is, it's just like these are things that may have been in their control, may have not have been in their control, but yet someone has had a worse story than
Do
I've
you
had.
believe that a lifeline was necessary in that moment, or do you believe that it was for you to pull yourself out of that mud?
It was meant for me to go through it 100% because some of the quotes and some of the lessons and the conviction I have for why I'm so action oriented came through those moments.
The reason why I ask that is something that we're learning now is the power of ask and asking for the help that you need. And if we just kind of reflect back on everything that we have shared this episode, it's like, when do you know when it's up to you to get indignant and push, find a way or make one? And when do you know when it's time for you to reach out and say, I need help. I'm not okay.
I mean, I think that's why it goes back to like having relationships with only quality people.
There we go.
Because then if I have only quality people around me, like while I may be suffering, they may be willing to listen to what it is that I'm going through, be understanding of it, and say, you got this.
Something you shared once, and this will be the last thought, is you were on a live once, Men Talk. And something that you guys were saying was like vulnerability is a weakness because then people see where your holes are and then they use that against you. And I remember chiming in and I was like, no, it can be used as power because number one, you give light to other people knowing like I'm not alone in this. And then two, the people closest to you can see how they can help you. Yet if your circle is not qualified, it will be a weakness and
Mhm.
they will use it against you.
Very true.
And so it goes back to how do you qualify your circle? You talk about job interviews. There are some jobs they have 3 to 5 interviews before they even give you an offer. And yet, when it comes to the people closest in our lives, I met this person over drinks, and that's it.
No, it's not quality. Well, it's not quality for me.
It's not quality for you.
For me.
So at the end of the day, you got to ask yourself, how am I qualifying the spaces around me and how has it been serving me up to this point? Depending on your answer, I think that's going to lead you to what to do next. Randy, it's always good a conversation.
I appreciate all of you guys' time and attention. I promise you there's definitely more on the way. And we're here. Bet on T Craig.
Absolutely. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe, and put in the comments if anything resonated with you or what questions you got for us. We love to make sure this conversation is meeting you where you are. That's it. Till next time, we'll talk to y'all later.